No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton. This is Outspoken Live episode number 270. And breaking today, a cover-up of epic proportions, as it's revealed a super injunction asked for by the British government has hidden a £7 billion Afghanistan resettlement scheme, seeing 24,000 Afghans airlifted to the UK, with ex-government advisor Dominic Cummings revealing some arriving are dangerous terrorists.
The Ministry of Defence mounted a cover-up and a rescue mission. It is codenamed Operation Rubyfin. We think it's one of the biggest peacetime evacuation missions in modern British history. It was a noble act, but it has turned into a vast secret immigration scheme, and it has been going on at the same time as the Prime Minister has been warning, without stricter controls on foreigners coming in, Britain could become
an island of strangers.
Labour ministers have also pledged to smash the gangs fueling the small boats crisis, without telling anyone that they've been running their own immigration scheme under the radar.
So this is a truly shocking story. In my digest next, I'm going to reveal how it proves the UK's deep state is now working with politicians and the judiciary to work against the interests of British patriots. Then, my superstar panel. Today, former Conservative minister, ex-UKIP leader Neil Hamilton, and political commentator, author and broadcaster Christine Hamilton. Yes, our favourite husband and wife duo are back to cover this shocking piece of breaking news. But it's a very busy news day, because also coming up on the show, Jeremy Corbyn and Zarah Sultana's yet to be launched Islamist party wipes out slippery Starmer's Labour advantage overnight. So why at this point has Matt Goodwin publicly turned on Reform UK for the first time as the civil war within Nigel Farage's party grows? I'm going to reveal all. Now, the British Bashing Corporation throws a second MasterChef host in Ter Road under the bus in what I think is another pathetic bid to save its own skin. And Prince Harry, Meghan Markle have tricked the king again with their revolting decision to leak peace talks. So when will the monarch ever learn? Then in the uncancelled after show on Substack, we'll reveal why Prince Harry is set to lose another £1.5 million as his down and dirty lawfare fails yet again. His biographer and our royal mastermind Angela Levin will reveal all, plus why Princess Diana hated Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh. It's a surprise, isn't it? Sophie seems like just the nicest woman. So we'll analyse the historic royal feud too. You can sign up to watch at www.outspoken.live. Of course, we'll also reveal today's greatest Britain and Union Jackass at the end of the show. Union Jackass, completely chosen by you. You can vote in the live chat on YouTube as we speak. Here are today's nominees. Rosie O'Donnell, nominated by Arts and Culture on X for blaming the Texas young girls drowning on Donald Trump. She calls him despicable. Prince Harry, aforementioned, nominated by Darren Donaldson for so obviously leaking that reconciliation meeting. And Jane Delves, nominated by Mother Clanger. Now, you may not have heard of her, but we are going to be discussing the story. She is the head of Bilton School, who sent Courtney Wright home for wearing that amazing Union Jack dress on Culture Day, which I think should be celebrated. You know, she had a bit of Jerry Halliwell going on. Well, Courtney herself, that brave young patriot, has also spoken out. I'm going to show you what she said during the course of the show as well. A lot going on today, so let's go. I've been called a conspiracy theorist for talking about the UK deep state conspiring with the judiciary and politicians on an almost constant basis to work against the interests of true British patriots. There is so much we don't know, so much we are not told, so much the mainstream media is complicit in covering up. And if you ever doubted quite how deep this constant complicit cover-up goes, then just know that 24,000 Afghans will be arriving in Britain or are already here, blowing a £7 billion hole in our already devastated national budget. And we didn't know a bloody thing about it because the courts decided with the politicians that we didn't have a right to know, even as we went to the polls last year. That is what we're talking about. So the court and this is just so shocking to me, and it should be shocking for you too, but I'll take you through it. The court allowed the former Conservative government to take out a super injunction about this unprecedented Afghan resettlement scheme following a data breach. And that meant it was impossible for someone like me to even report that there was an injunction in place at all without being thrown in jail. And even now, the full truth is being suppressed because this scheme was meant to initially rehome just 200 Afghanis. That soon leaped to 3,000. Then after the data leak, 17,000. There's 5,000 to go. But some predictions suggest that when family members are taken into account, it could even be over 100,000 Afghanis secretly flying into the United Kingdom. But who knows? Who knows? Because even today, the full truth is being suppressed from you and from me. Your government, the civil service you fund, is lying to you. And I don't think this equals a democracy because you cannot have democracy without freedom of information. We elected a new government in July while all of this was going on, but we didn't know this information. That makes me sick. It's chilling. Now, the corrupted government today assured us that all of these folk, all of these 25,000 or 100,000 coming from Afghanistan are lovely. And look, I totally understand that many of these people help the UK war effort, and I do accept that. But former senior government advisor to Boris Johnson, Dominic Cummings, wasn't concealing the sorry truth today about who many of these people really are. He admitted, who could have predicted the pathological system working exactly as intended again? And the story is much worse than what's now coming out. Some of the people flowing over are obviously dangerous terrorists. Now, indeed, I have heard my own horror stories coming from you, the outspoken audience, because citizen journalism is so important in all of this, given we know the cover-up's going on. So I just want to read you what one loyal, outspoken viewer told me. They said, and of course I'm protecting their identity for obvious reasons, but they said, my son is a captain in the army, and he was involved in bringing a group of these men to this country. He said the group he dealt with were so barbaric, they had to be locked away in army barracks in Wales. So we're not talking about angels, folks. We're not talking about 25,000 angels who are going to enhance our culture, okay? Trust me on that. Many of them will be linked to Al-Qaeda and ISIS. Many of them will be double agents. That's how that works. I have to say today, credit to the Daily Mail with its very expensive lawyers, which tried to fight the government on this super injunction in a way that would be completely impossible for an independent journalist like me. Watch.
A secret operation to smuggle migrants into Britain is being run by ministers, and they have put you and me on the hook for paying a projected £7 billion. The secret resettlement scheme was launched after the Mail discovered a disastrous data leak blunder by the British government that put 100,000 people at risk of death by the Taliban. I've been working on this story for 2 years with my colleague David Williams.
It was clear the leak has been catastrophic. We put it to the MOD and we told them that Afghans were panicking. The MOD confirmed it. We stressed we did not want to put lives at risk, and yet within hours they were trying to close us down. Initially it was the D-Notice Committee, and then it was an injunction followed by a super injunction, which was draconian.
This is the first time a British government has ever gagged a newspaper with a super injunction. Now, the Mail was never going to endanger the lives of Afghans who have worked for Britain.
So just take this in for 1 second. Without any public debate, our doors were thrown open to hell with our safety yet again, or warnings from those in power about us becoming an island of strangers.
But today we can reveal this eye-watering scheme and how Parliament was kept deliberately oblivious or misled, as a judge was told. Instead of coming clean, the Ministry of Defence mounted a cover-up and a rescue mission. It is codenamed Operation Rubyfig. We think it's one of the biggest peacetime evacuation missions in modern British history. It was a noble act, but it has turned into a vast secret immigration scheme, and it has been going on at the same time as the Prime Minister has been warning, without stricter controls on foreigners coming in, Britain could become
an island of strangers.
Labour ministers have also pledged to smash the gangs fueling the small boats crisis, without telling anyone that they've been running their own immigration scheme under the radar.
Now, here's the thing. Of course, the government today is trying to distance itself from it. But the Labour Defence Secretary, John Healey, admitted that he did know before the election. He knew before the election, but was also constrained by the super injunction. So today he came to Parliament to come clean.
This led to the High Court granting an unprecedented super injunction and the previous government establishing a secret Afghan resettlement route. Today, I'm announcing to the House a change in government policy. I'm closing this resettlement route, I'm disclosing the data loss, and I'm confirming that the court order was lifted at 12 noon today. Members of this House, including you, Mr. Speaker, and myself, have been subject to this super injunction. It is unprecedented.
Yeah, it is unprecedented. But it happened, and both governments allowed it to happen.
It was covered by the super injunction. And the then government initially established the ARR to resettle a target cohort of around 200 principals. But in early 2024, a combination of the Minister's decisions on the scheme's policy design and the court's views had broadened this category to nearly 3,000 principals. I want to provide assurance, Mr. Speaker, both to the House and to the British public, that all individuals relocated under the Afghan response route, ARAP, or the Home Office's ACRS scheme undergo strict national security checks before being able to enter our country.
Well, look, I mean, okay, national security checks. I guess that is better than like the 70,000 this year who have arrived illegally by boats with no checks at all. But forgive me if I have zero confidence, given Dominic Cummings is convinced that dangerous terrorists are amongst these arrivals who have been flown secretly into this country. And there are still so many questions today. How did this leak happen in the first place? Why did the police not launch criminal proceedings given the very obvious threat caused to our national security? And remember, news of this Afghan influx came just hours after it emerged more than 1 million migrants are now claiming universal credit in Britain, with the majority unemployed, sparking fury from Nigel Farage.
This is going to make you angry. For the first time, the Department of Work and Pensions have given us some figures that many have wanted for years. The result, there are 1.3 million migrants in Britain on universal credit, and over half of them don't do any work at all. This goes completely against the lie we've been told for 25 years, that immigration's fine because everyone's working and everyone's contributing. We can see from this it's not. The cost of this, by the way, is £12 billion every year. We keep being asked, where will reform get the money from? Well, I tell you what, here's 12 billion. That would be a very good start indeed. Some of this has happened since Labour came to power, but nearly all of it happened during 14 years of Conservative government. And if they dare say a word about these numbers today, don't take them seriously. Frankly, they should be in hiding for what they've done to this country.
And they should be in hiding, actually, over the fact that they allowed this super injunction to remain in place during last year's election. I would say this secret Afghani settlement is one of the biggest cover-ups in modern history, but given how the truth about the Southport massacre and Axel Rudakabana was concealed, I'm not even slightly surprised. We now have a deep state so determined to stop so-called riots at any cost that they will lie to us about the destruction that they are bringing to our once great country. Shame on them. Now, the Superstar panel. Straight to Christine and Neil Hamilton on this big day of breaking news. Neil Hamilton, you're a barrister, but I'm sorry. how has the British legal system come to this? A super injunction covering up such an important piece of information that surely we had a right to know before we went to the polls last year.
Yeah, well, I totally agree with you. I mean, the one thing that we do know is that the one gang that needs to be smashed more than any others is the old gang of uniparty politicians who presided over this institutionalized lying machine that has told untruth after untruth about immigration to the people of this country for the last 50 years. Actually, this is nothing new. This is perhaps the worst example, but nevertheless, this has been building up for decade after decade. And for the last Conservative government, or so-called Conservative government, which was deeply committed to reducing net migration to less than 100,000 a year back, in the early 2010s, to have presided ultimately over a net figure, so far as it can be believed, of nearly 1 million migrants last year coming in legally, regardless of the illegal migrants, and then overlaid with this kind of deception of the grossest kind to go into a general election knowing that this super injunction was actually going to perpetuate the lies to the British people. You said the Conservative Party leaders who were responsible for all this should go into hiding. I think we should do an exchange and send them to Afghanistan in exchange for some of these migrants.
That would be nice. That would be nice. But Christine, there is such a serious aspect to this story, right? So let's say 25,000 are coming in. Well, Dominic Cummings, who, let's be honest, has been attempting, whether you like him or not, has been attempting to expose the dodgy work of the British deep state and their failures on a whole load of fronts, including their ability to protect our borders, says amongst these people flying in, Christine, are dangerous terrorists. And you know that that is going to be true because a lot of these people who were pretending to be allies of the United Kingdom or of NATO during the Afghani conflict were double agents, Christine, in many cases working for Al-Qaeda or ISIS. That is just a reality. So out of 25,000, we don't know how many of these people are terrorists. It's utterly appalling that this has happened.
As if I wasn't depressed enough about the state of this country. I've just been completely horrified listening to that. I wasn't aware previously because I haven't looked at the news today. I've been too busy. Dominic Cummings is not everybody's cup of tea, but he is bang on the money so many times, and he's bang on the money this time. Everybody, I assume, would agree that those people in Afghanistan who had genuinely helped the British out there and who were genuinely in danger deserve to be allowed to come to this country with their immediate family. Nobody would deny that. But no, we are just importing another huge heap of trouble. It's just devastating. It's breathtaking. And the idea that some of them, I can't remember who said this, looked so, I can't remember the word he used, I think he said uncivilized. It was the guy from the Daily Mail, I think, that they had to go to a remote army camp in the middle of nowhere in Wales. Those people probably by now are living next door to you, to me, to whoever. And of course, there are going to be some serious terrorists amongst them. It stands to reason. You don't have to be a conspiracy theorist to realise that that is the reality. And yes, we want to help anyone in genuine danger. But dear God, have we over-egged the pudding?
Totally. Well, the thing is,
I really do.
And listening to John Healey speak in Parliament today, which I did, he made it very clear that actually there's no real risk. There's no real risk in Afghanistan under the Taliban. The Taliban wasn't interested actually in going after all of the people who helped the United Kingdom. They are going after people who are currently challenging their administration. But
what does he know about what's going on in Afghanistan? As some of those poor people are concerned. They've probably just been killed, tortured, or God knows what.
That's true. But Neil, this outspoken viewer who says, my son as a captain in the army was involved in bringing these men to this country, says the group he dealt with were so barbaric they had to be locked away in an army barracks in Wales. And they're coming to a street near you or me.
Exactly. Well, I'm sure Wales will thank them very much indeed, British government, for doing that. And when I was a member of the Welsh Parliament, of course, they wanted to dump huge numbers of asylum seekers in little towns in my constituency. But that's just by the way. But what's going on here actually is a long-standing policy by parties across the spectrum who formed the government of this country to displace the indigenous population of the United Kingdom. White Brits will be in a minority in our own country long before the end of this century at the current levels of migration. Britain is already in its great cities totally unrecognizable from where we were even a quarter of a century, let alone half a century ago. And this is gathering pace with these huge numbers of people who are coming in legally, perfectly legally. That's the point that really needs to be underlined here. This is deliberate government policy to displace the traditional population of this country with foreigners who are deeply antipathetic very often to our culture and traditions. And it's an act of treachery on the grossest scale.
It is absolutely disgusting. And thinking of the finance of this too, Stephen Wolfe has just pointed out to me, he was here yesterday, of course, that if you think about this, the cost of the 150,000 Afghans coming to the UK is said to be £7 billion, but will be more, bringing the total cost of immigration in the UK to $19 billion. So in tax terms, he says, this means the 33 million income taxpayers will pay £575 towards asylum and immigration each year. That is equivalent to a gross £3,000 of your taxable salary. So we can't afford this as a country, but I'm sure you agree that you can't afford this either in terms of pounds. Sorry, I think I said dollars there. Of course, I mean pounds. I don't know what I was talking about. A political revolution is coming, and it's no surprise. But Matt Goodwin, who had long been seen as Nigel Farage's #1 loyalist, has now spoken out as the Reform UK civil war grows. So let me take you through this fascinating story. First, you'll know that I revealed the news that Jeremy Corbyn and Zarah Sultana are considering naming their new Islamist party Hope UK, or as I would call it, Hopeless UK, but not in the polls, because this is astonishing. Brand new from Find Out Now, sees the Jeremy Corbyn party, Hopeless UK, immediately kicking off at 15% in the polls, immediately tying Labour, which drops 20 points to 15%. Now, of course, Reform UK right out in front at 34%. This is a hugely significant story. It means the tectonics plates are shifting. It means the uni party will finally be dead. Of course, the mainstream media doesn't want that. They haven't even mentioned this poll on the British Bashing Corporation or Woke ITV, but it's major. As Calvin McKenzie put it, a new poll shows the Corbyn Sultana party would basically destroy Labour, with Starmer ending with 15%, on par with the lefty newbies. The poll by Find Out Now puts Reform on 34%. Our best times lie ahead. But do they? Is Reform UK really on track to storm government when at this point, even its loyalists are now turning? You'll know I hugely respect Matt Goodwin in a lot of ways, but I have been very critical of him over the past few months for towing the Reform UK party line when clearly what they've been doing goes against his own personal philosophy on everything from refusing the concept of mass deportations to worrying about demographic change to the appalling treatment of Rupert Lowe, where he was reported to the police by Zia Yusuf for doing nothing wrong. But Matt Goodwin has snapped, and the final straw for him was the importing into the party of Jake Berry, the former Conservative Party chairman. And Matt Goodwin has spoken out today in a brand new Substack, and I find it fascinating because he will know that there is a risk. You know what Reform UK are like. You utter one word of discontent and you are thrust out forever. And this is a guy who thought he was going to become Reform UK's first Home Secretary. So he's putting his own political career on the line, but I credit him for doing so because the points he is making are completely correct. So this is what Matt Goodwin has written today. He says there is a very big risk and a potentially huge problem coming down the track for Reform UK that threatens to blow the revolt completely off course. And he says it's in the consolidation stage that things get a lot harder. At this stage, the populist revolt has to achieve a number of other things. It has to build a coherent ideology or set of guiding principles. It has to attract people who are not only experienced, but ideologically unified and who want the same thing. And it has to establish a dominant faction at the very top of the party that is wholly focused on achieving the same goal and can protect the revolt and its leader. It is during the transition to the second stage that countless populist revolts around the world have completely failed and been blown apart. And what has often brought this about exactly? Well, it's pretty simple. They are infiltrated. They are taken over and captured by politicians from outside the revolt who neither share its aims or ideology, who do not want to work towards achieving the same goal, and who have no serious interest at all in upending and overturning the status quo. He goes on. The only way reform will ever take power, will ever take on the blob, will ever push the country in a very different direction, is if it remains firmly focused on rejecting the established consensus, not being captured by the architects of this consensus, which raises the obvious question. If reform is going to do this, then why on earth is the party welcoming the likes of former chairman of the Tory party, Jake Berry? This is a politician who openly opposed Brexit, who has long been a passionate supporter of Net Zero. How do you do this unless you are precisely what reform should be avoiding at all costs? Careerist politicians who are more interested in preserving themselves than completely upending and overturning the status quo they helped create. Even more worryingly, at the very same time as reform was welcoming Jake Berry, the weekend's paper suggested some reform insiders are briefing against the idea of former Home Secretary Suella Braverman from also defecting to reform, telling the Daily Mail that reform should not take her on account of her being disruptive. This right here is one way reform not only ensures it is able to manage the transition from the breakthrough to the consolidation stage, but establishes a level of ideological and philosophical coherence amongst its growing number of members of parliament. You do not lead a revolt against the establishment by appointing the establishment to oversee the result. You do not remove the brokered status quo by hiring the very people who helped create the status quo to begin with. You lead it by ensuring that nobody can join this revolt unless they're completely, unequivocally, and unapologetically overturning the dominant regime. And I did think it was worth sharing quite a lot of that with you, because what Matt Goodwin is calling for is some sort of pledge card that would mean Jake Berry has to sign up to things that he clearly doesn't believe in. To my superstar panel now, Christine Hamilton and Neil Hamilton. Neil, of course, the former leader of the UKIP party who has his own run-ins with Nigel Farage over the years and knows how thin-skinned he can be. So this is bold, isn't it, Neil, by Matt Goodwin, because effectively by writing this Substack blog and by publicly challenging Reform UK on bringing Jake Berry into the mix, he is risking his own position in the party.
Yeah, well, we all know Nigel the Old, don't we, for all his great gifts as an orator and a communicator and a dynamic force in politics, who's achieved more than any politician in the last 100 years from outside Parliament. We do know that he likes to run an autocracy in any political party that he's in charge of. And reform is no different from that. Now, whether Jake Berry will move on from being just an ordinary member of reform, I have absolutely no idea. But I share Matt Goodwin's concerns that somebody who quite clearly does not, unless he's had some amazing, miraculous Damascene conversion on the road to Nigel's party, doesn't believe in the key tenets of reform, against mass migration, against net zero, and so on and so forth. He spent the last 10 years or more in Parliament doing the opposite, and is never recanted. Now, Suella Braverman, I think, is a completely different kettle of fish. She resigned from the government on a point of principle over their failure to control immigration. She is a true Brexiteer, and I think she would be perfectly at home in reform. But I can't see the likes of centrist Jobsworths like Jake Berry having anything to give to reform. And I do think that reform has to maintain the momentum of its disruptions, because that's what they should be. We need to disrupt the uniparty consensus. And as Matt Goodwin says, you don't disrupt the consensus by importing it into your own party.
And then, obviously, Christine Hamilton, we see the tectonic shapes of British politics shifting fast, because for Jeremy Corbyn and Zarah Sultana to not actually properly launch a party, and by the way, their so-called launch was a total mess because Zarah Sultana jumped the gun and Corbyn was annoyed and they don't have a name yet. And, this is literally like a terrible mess. And straight to 15%. Straight to the same position as Labour in the polls. I mean, the mainstream media may not understand what's going on here, Christine, but it is the end of the two-party system in this country, is it not?
It definitely is. And sorry, can I just go back briefly to the previous thing about Matt Goodwin's Substack, which I did happen to. It's the only thing I've read today. And I did read that and I was astonished. The Reform's problem is that they're accused of having no ballast, no bottom, nobody with experience apart from Nigel. They get rid of people with experience like Rupert Lowe and Ben Habib, etc. So they are desperate to get some serious names in that people will think, oh gosh, yes, they've got experience. They've been ministers. They've been this, that and the other. But I mean, Jake Berry, for goodness sake, he voted for Tom Tugendhat to be the leader of the Tory party. And they have welcomed him with open arms.
It is nuts.
I was talking to a Tory MP last week who shall be nameless, and he was telling me that a group of his councillors who are going to lose their seats next May because if they stand for the Tories have said to him, can we all go to Reform together? We want to go to Reform because we want to save our seats. There's the clue, isn't it? Save our seats. Will you please come with us? And he knows, this MP, that he will lose, or she, let's not be too sexist, whoever it was, knows that they will probably lose their seat if they stand as a Tory. And of course, nobody wants to do that. They want to stay on the gravy train. So, they are between a rock and a hard place, Reform. So it'll be interesting to see how it pans out. But yes, I mean, it's complete madness to take on people like Jake Berry. But no, I mean, the Zarah Sultana business, I mean, that was just farcical. It was Monty Python. As you say, they hadn't got a name. Jeremy Corbyn sort of skipped the planet when she announced that. Nowhere to be seen, nowhere to support her or anything like that. But to leap to 15%, it tells you what the underlying currents are within a lot of the Labour Party. I mean, Nigel Farage, when he first started Reform, would have been over the moon to have leapt to 15%. He's had several years of hard slog to get to where he is now, which is astonishing. So we have I don't think anybody would be, anybody would be foolish to put any money on the actual outcome of the next election. Who knows? Everything's up for grabs.
No, exactly, because that's the thing, Neil. I don't understand why at this point, so many years out from election, Nigel Farage is so determined to pivot to the left. Like, what is going on? He gave that interview to the New Statesman last week saying, no, we're going to be to the left on immigration of the Conservative Party. Actually, I'm to the left on immigration of the general public. It's like, I don't think that this support for Farage is hard support. This is soft support. And there might have to be an alternative, Neil. I voted for Reform UK at the last election. I thought they were the best option at this point. But what is it about this constant pivoting, not just to the centre ground now, Neil, but to the left of politics, going soft on all of these issues, which are the issues which saw Trump win in that landslide. And I think we'll see the next Prime Minister of this country elected too. What's it about? Why is he just soft? Is Nigel soft on all of these issues? I mean, I watched Ben Habib's brilliant interview with Liam Tufts on The Dozen, and he said he didn't even believe Nigel Farage particularly supported Brexit. Now, I would previously have said, well, that's ludicrous, right? That's ludicrous. But all of a sudden, Nigel is backing away from these positions that we thought were so ingrained in who he is and what he believes.
Yeah, well, I think the clue was when Rupert Lowe came out of the woodwork and said that that Reform needed to put in place the infrastructure in the party that would enable it to hit the road running if they end up as the majority party after the next general election. And that meant having a properly worked out, coherent programme which was principled and from which they would not deviate. then that was the end of Rupert Lowe suddenly. And a big point that Nigel made against him was that Rupert's call for mass deportations of illegal migrants was just impossible to achieve. Well, what is the whole point of reform if it's not to reverse the tide of mass illegal immigration and to give it the highest priority, as Trump did in a matter of hours, not even days or weeks in the United States? Executive orders flew out of the Oval Office in vast profusion, and they closed the borders and they began rounding up the illegal migrants and sending them back in their tens of thousands every week. Well, we could do the same thing if we had a will to do it and the powers of organization to make it happen. But if Nigel is just saying, oh, it's all too difficult, then I think people are going to wonder, well, what is the difference between reform and the uni party that they claim to be the disruptors of? So I don't agree that Nigel didn't believe it in Brexit. I think that's absolute nonsense, and I don't believe that he's suddenly gone soft on immigration overall. But if part and parcel of reforms becoming the government of the country is that they become more, quotes, responsible, i.e. that they sink back into this sad and saggy consensus that we're all trying to get away from, then it will have failed in what it set out to do. And the disillusionment of the British people will then be total. But the British political system is now fractured, I think, beyond repair. And the key question is for the left: how many sultanas make a fruitcake? I suppose. And the fruitcake party. Under Corbyn and Sultana is certainly offers a stark choice.
Well, they're all Fruit Loops. All of these people are Fruit Loops. Can I just show you what's been going on in Glasgow? Sorry, in Edinburgh today. Look at this: 3 Palestinian women arrested after ploughing a van into an Edinburgh factory. The Scottish police saying the women aged 31, 34 and 42 have been arrested under the Terrorism Act of 2000. And this is the sort of madness that the Islamist Party and the Sultana brand is bringing to our country. It is absolutely insane. I couldn't agree with you more on that. Breaking right now, number 10 and Keir Starmer have weighed in on the shocking story of Courtney Wright. Have you seen this? The wonderful young woman sent home from her school cultural day because she dared to wear a Union Jack dress. Now, I think she should have been celebrated, this young patriot, but instead she was shamed by her school. The Prime Minister has now spoken out, saying that he has always been clear that being British is something to be celebrated. You can see from everything this government has done, we are a tolerant, diverse, open country, proud of being British. But I would say you're totally wrong, Slippery Starmer. It is your woke policies that are encouraging this sort of hatred of young women like that, who are trying to be patriots. But let me take you through the story, because we have heard from this young lady for the first time today, Courtney Wright, and her father, Stuart Field. But all of this emerged after Bilton School sent a letter to parents announcing a culture day. And they wrote, "We're excited to inform you that Bilton School will be celebrating Culture Day. The special day is dedicated to recognising and celebrating the rich cultural diversity within our school. Students across all year groups will have the opportunity to take part in a variety of cultural activities designed to promote inclusion, understanding and appreciation of different backgrounds, traditions and heritage." And then they invited students to wear traditional cultural dress to school instead of their usual school uniform. And okay, they said no football kits, no sport kits, but ensure that an outfit worn is appropriate for a school setting and holds cultural significance. Well, I'm sorry, what could be more culturally significant in the United Kingdom than a Union Jack dress? But the way that the school treated young Courtney was appalling. And Stuart, her father, posted this statement via Facebook that went viral. He wrote, "On my way to collect my daughter from school. She's currently being made to sit at reception waiting for me. The reason? It's Cultural Diversity Day at school where children can wear clothing representing their culture and write a speech about their heritage. She's been told it's not for her as she gets to celebrate being British every day. Disgusting, woke, lefty teachers have removed a white British 12-year-old girl for being proud of her country. This 12-year-old girl, without saying a single word, without being allowed to make a beautiful, inclusive speech, has highlighted the very problem with the left woke in this country." And he then posted her speech that she was unable to deliver. And I want to deliver it to you today on behalf of Courtney Wright because I just think it's so brilliant. So Courtney was going to say, "Today I want to talk about my culture, British culture, and why it's important to me. In Britain, we have lots of traditions, including drinking tea, our love for talking about the weather, and we have the royal family. We have amazing history like kings and queens, castles and writers like Shakespeare. It's also modern, diverse, and always changing with music, fashion, and food from all around the world, blending into daily life. And let's not forget, fish and chips. It's also the way we speak, our humour, our values of fairness and politeness, and the mix of old traditions and new ideas. But sometimes at school, we only hear about other cultures, which is great because learning about different countries is interesting and important, but it can feel like being British doesn't count as a culture just because it's the majority. I think culture should be for everyone, not just for people from other countries or backgrounds. Being British is still a culture and it matters too. It's part of who I am. So let's celebrate all cultures, whether they come from far away or right here at home. Thank you." Well, Courtney Wright, I mean, seriously, what a wonderful speech. What a true patriot. And the fact that she was punished for that is a total indictment on Britain's education system today. Now, she has spoken out today to the Sun newspaper alongside her father, Stuart. Watch.
First teacher I saw, she straight away just took me to go get changed. She didn't want to hear about my dress or see it. She just straight away wanted to get changed and not be in it. Another teacher tried to stop me and said that you can't be in that, it's your nationality and not your culture. And some other girl who's wearing her family tradition like rugby top got told to change as well.
I went to the school, pick her up to see daughter who's, she's a grade A student and she's sat in reception like she's being punished for something. She wasn't allowed in school, she wasn't allowed to take part, the school wasn't willing to read her speech, they weren't interested in anything she had to say. She was literally put out to one side and treated like she was doing something wrong, and you could see in her face she didn't, she was upset. It's terrible because this is a 12-year-old child's interpretation of what British culture is to her.
Well, I absolutely love those two patriots, but of course the usual suspects have weighed in and have got this all wrong, trying to stoke division. Like, look at Narinder Kaur's take on this. She posted, "I'm sorry, but this story of a 12-year-old girl asked to celebrate the culture and diversity of others, but still rocks up in her own cultural attire, like a kid in India asked to celebrate the British, American, Spanish kids around her, but she still rocks up in a sari because it's her culture. Daft and disrespectful." To my superstar panel, Christine Hamilton, Neil Hamilton. Christine, there is nothing daft and disrespectful, is there, about Courtney Wright? I thought her costume was absolutely brilliant, but it was her speech that I was so taken by, actually, because she perfectly explained in a very respectful way, yeah, I want to learn about other cultures too, but why can't we celebrate being British, being English? We should be proud of it. And I feel so disgusted by the school. And by the way, I've got to call out the head teacher. She's nominated for our Uni and Jackass today. Jane Delves, the head of Bilton School, who sent Courtney home. Shame on you. Christine, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, absolutely. I'd have to go back to the letter from the school, but I think Narinder Kaur, as always, has got it completely wrong. They weren't asked to celebrate other cultures. The children were asked to celebrate the variety of cultures. And Courtney represents what to me is it's the basic culture of this country. I mean, not forever, no, because it's fast disappearing, but that's what she was doing. And that flag represents, yes, it represents nationality, but it also represents, to most fair-minded people, it represents the things in her speech. It represents the weather. It represents tea. It represents fish and chips. It represents haggis. It represents, cock-a-leekie. It represents all that sort of stuff. And I thought her speech was, I mean, it brought tears to my eyes. It almost did. I just think she's an amazing young woman, and her dad has every right to be incredibly proud of her. That school should hang its head in shame. If they had done that to any other nationality or somebody representing any other culture, there would be an absolute outcry. But because she's a white British girl, it's fair game and send her home. And by the way, don't laugh, I have one of those dresses. And it's great. I know. They come in all...
I think you would look spectacular. I'm sure you just sometimes wear it around the house to impress Neil. Doing your little who do you think you are dance.
They come in all sizes and they're very stretchy. But no, I mean, I think she's an astonishing young lady. She's only 12, for goodness sake. She's a child, a very young child. But she shows a maturity way beyond that of her stupid, idiotic, prejudiced head.
Totally. And clearly very well raised and brought up, Neil, by an anti-woke dad, which is so important. But isn't this the problem, Neil? Our kids, this is what they're being indoctrinated with. This is how they're being taught. They are being taught to hate their own culture.
Of course, this is what the left has done throughout the ages, is to trash our own culture. It's every other culture in the world has to be celebrated, but not our own. We have to be ashamed about it. Do you remember Emily Thornberry and White Van Man and the St. George's flag? She couldn't understand what on earth the St. George's flag was doing on this guy's little semi-detached house in southeast London. And the Labour Party has consciously tried to destroy traditional British culture. A generation or so ago, it would have been completely unexceptionable to have a child coming to a school with a Union Jack outfit on or waving Union Jack flags on such an occasion. But today, of course, we are suffering a kind of cultural terrorism by the wokerati in all levels of the official classes and the media, for that matter, as well. BBC is, of course, up to its neck in all this, as much as anyone is. And schools should actually have as part of their curriculum, in my view, a proper appreciation of Britain's contribution to the world. Because if we can't be proud of our country, no country in the world has a right to be proud of itself, because we have given so much more than any other country, especially given the size of our population and our geographical position on the northwest periphery of Europe, to the world's history and culture in almost every respect, and scientific achievement, medical breakthroughs, etc., etc., and giving the world the great gift of the English language and its literature. And English has become the lingua franca of the internet because of all that symbolizes. So for a child to be terrorized, I think is the right word here, in the way that she has, I think is absolutely wrong. It's a form of child abuse on the part of the school, in my opinion. And so it's dunce's caps all round for the teachers who are behind this.
Breaking right now, the British Bashing Corporation has just sacked a second MasterChef host, with John Ter Road losing his job for so-called racist language on one occasion that he claims he never used. So this witch hunt, which started against Greg Wallace, has now moved on to John Ter Road. And I do just want to remind everyone, this is the corporation that for decades allowed two paedophiles in Hugh Edwards and Jimmy Savile to run rampant. And they covered up their behavior. Yet when it comes to two white working class lads who maybe, used a bit of fruity language at times, a bit of sex talk every now and then, they've got to go. And look, Greg Wallace predicted this. Front page of the Daily Mirror today, I won't be the last. And this is the problem with Me Too style witch hunts, where does it end? Are we now saying that people's careers should end as a result of humour? And we are really. Now, The Sun was the first to reveal the story that the BBC had asked John Ter Road to resign over a racist remark and then blame mental health issues. He refused to do that, quite rightly, I think, because the BBC said, oh, look, you can just say, just like what Greg Wallace has said, oh, you know, I've got a bit of autism. That's why I said this. But no, he refused. And he released a statement last night saying, following publication of the executive summary of the investigation into Greg Wallace while working on MasterChef, I am aware of speculation that I am one of the other individuals against whom an allegation has been upheld. For the sake of transparency, I confirm that I am the individual who is alleged to have used racial language on one occasion. The allegation is that I did so sometime in 2018 or 2019 in a social situation, and that the person I was speaking with did not believe that it was intended in a malicious way, and that I apologized immediately afterwards. I have absolutely no recollection of any of this, and I do not believe that it happened. However, I want to be clear that I've always had the view that any racial language is wholly unacceptable in any environment. I'm shocked and saddened by the allegation, as I would never wish to cause anyone offence. Now, Greg Wallace started the day in a positive way. Watch this.
Good morning, Sunday morning. Have you put time aside today just for you? To go for a walk, or to sit and read, or listen to some music? Can you stick half an hour in just for you? Have a lovely day.
Now, look, I actually know Greg Wallace and John Ter Road like a tiny bit. I once went on the set of MasterChef and did one of those things where they had to judge me cooking. And I found them perfectly nice guys. Okay, I'm another bloke, but can you really look at that guy and just think the BBC is putting all of its full force into destroying him forevermore? And I have huge sympathy, actually, for what Greg Wallace is going through, because they are making him look like a rapist or a serial killer for the fact that over 2 decades he made some saucy jokes. And as he's always said, saucy humour was part of who he was. It was part of his persona. So he actually posted, after the report was released, for 8 months, my family and I have lived under a cloud. Trial by media, fueled by rumour and clickbait. None of these serious allegations against me were upheld. I challenged the remaining issue of unwanted touching, but have had to accept a difference in perception, and I am deeply sorry for any distress caused. It was never intended. I'm relieved that the Banerjee report fully recognises that my behaviour changed profoundly in 2018. Some of my humour and language missed the mark. I never set out to harm or humiliate. I always tried to bring warmth and support to MasterChef on screen and off. After nearly 20 years on the show, I now see that certain patterns shaped by traits I've only recently begun to understand may have been misread. I also accept that more could have been done by others and by myself to address concerns earlier. A late autism diagnosis has helped me understand how I communicate and how I'm perceived. I'm still learning. Banerjee have given me great support, and I thank them. But in the end, the BBC left me exposed to trial by media and the damage it leaves in its wake. To those who've shown kindness, thank you, it mattered. This has been brutal. For a working class man with a direct manner, modern broadcasting has become a dangerous place. I was the headline this time, but I won't be the last. There will be more casualties. If the BBC continues down this path where protecting its legacy matters more than protecting people, for my part, with full legal support, I will consider my next move. And actually, it was 2 men who I respect on the right who summed up the situation of what's going on with Greg Wallace best. First, the comedian Andrew Lawrence, who himself faced a cancellation storm recently, who posted, clearly Greg Wallace is socially inept and highly irritating. But the coven of wretched legacy media bullying white liberal women and their cucked, spineless male counterparts who are prodding him towards suicide are the very worst of humanity. And Brendan O'Neill, in Spite Online, he actually took this theme further. describing what is going on to Greg Wallace as the tragic last hurrah of the Me Too movement. And he writes, some perspective is called for, no? Wallace was accused of making lesbian jokes. He reportedly asked a lesbian member of the production team if she was sure she wasn't attracted to men. A female member of staff asked him if it was okay for her to go to his car to fetch and fix a parking ticket, to which he replied, you can come to my car. But can you handle the fact that everyone will think you just got off with a celebrity? He reportedly asked a female colleague if her boyfriend had a nice bum. Kirsty Walk, formerly of Newsnight, says Wallace made sexualised jokes during the filming of Celebrity MasterChef in 2011. Making crude asides or inquiring into the pertness of a colleague's boyfriend's butt is definitely bad behaviour. It might even be a case for HR. Someone should have wrapped this man's knuckles. But the spinning of these uncouth antics into a horror story about how the patriarchy still has its banterous boot on women's necks just feels over the top. A prat like Wallace with awesome power while infantilizing women who overheard his coarse comments. I mean, Kirsty Walk eats politicians for breakfast. She's one of TV's great gorillas of the powerful. She could have told Wallace to shut the hell up. This is the way with Me Too. It makes devils of men and it makes children of women. Under the regime of Me Too, individual men who have behaved badly, in some cases very badly, are never just reprimanded for their idiocy, vulgarity, or crimes. No, a spectacle is made of them. They are dragged to the public square as fleshy proof of the wickedness and danger of male behaviour. Women, meanwhile, are ironically disempowered. Me Too imagines them as perennial victims. They're seen as lacking the moral capacity even to rebuke a man who says something they'd rather not hear. Neil and Christine Hamilton are on my superstar panel. Christine, as a woman, you know how to look after yourself. And also, let's be honest, you look like a bit of bawdy humour every now and then, right? Can you believe that John Ter Road has now been sacked for making an apparent racialized comment that he denies once to someone who wasn't even offended? And how can the BBC all of a sudden try and take the moral high ground when they didn't give a damn about Hugh Edwards? They knew all about him. They didn't give a damn about Jimmy Savile. They knew all about him. Paedophiles.
Well, it's astonishing. I mean, I know Greg and John quite well because I got to the final of Celebrity MasterChef. I think it was in 2010.
Oh my God, I didn't know that, Christine. Were they all over you?
Well, you should have known. Do your homework.
I'm sorry. That's terrible of me.
It's all right, but you don't get to the final of MasterChef without spending a lot of time in their company, both while you're filming and offset. You know, we travelled here, we travelled there. You spend, evenings in hotels together, all that sort of thing. So I know them both pretty well. And yes, Greg, I described him as a bit like an embarrassing uncle. But heavens alive, that last comment by the spiked fellow, Brendan O'Neill, was absolutely on the ball. It infantilises women. Just tell him to shut up, hit him, kick him in the balls if it's that bad. But for goodness sake, don't just run to mummy. It's absurd. But the idea that John Ter Road is a racist is just, it's ludicrous. What is he supposed to have said? Let's hear what he's supposed to have said. Let's judge for ourselves. He doesn't even remember the incident taking place. I bet my bottom dollar that it's a very, very pathetic thing. Somebody's taken offence, but not the person to whom he allegedly said what he doesn't remember saying. I mean, has the BBC gone absolutely mad? Are we still paying our licence fee for people to be hung out to dry in this fashion? Well, we are, but what are we going to do about it? But no, of course, John Ter Road is not a racist. Greg Wallace is a bit like, as I said, an embarrassing uncle who, yes, obviously he went too far in certain situations. Well, there we are. That's very quick work on behalf of your research team, if they didn't know. If they didn't know. Well done,
there
Jessie.
You are, Christine. Wow. Okay,
but, I mean,
and you made the final. And this was before Greg lost all of his weight as well.
Yeah, I mean, he would arrive on set in all sorts of unlikely places all over the place. And he a lot of his jokes they weren't sexist jokes at all. They were just deeply unfunny. And you just thought, oh, yawn, Greg, all these sort of terrible puns and things like that. But that was Greg. And if occasionally honestly, who cares if you ask somebody if their boyfriend's got a pert bum? I mean, what?
So Christine, sorry, can I just clarify? Was that Lisa Faulkner with you as a contestant?
Yes, who is now Mrs. John Ter Road.
Yes. Okay. So she fell in love with John Ter Road during your series, then?
I think. Look, you'd have to ask them. You would have to ask them exactly what the position was, but I think it's John fell in love with Lisa during the series. They were both married, don't forget. But fairly quickly thereafter, they disengaged themselves, and they've now been happily married for a long time. She's a lovely, lovely girl, and John is a gorgeous, fun. I love both of them. They really are.
Yeah.
They're super duper human.
But the point is, I don't think there's anything bad about that. I mean, they met at work, but the point is, he can't have been that bad if he found his future wife, beautiful looking woman like Lisa Faulkner through that. I mean, Neil Hamilton, it does just feel like now, because the BBC has effed up so badly on so many occasions, they go for the low-hanging fruit. They go for the easy guys. And it does always seem, Neil, it really does. It always seems like it is the straight, white men. And if you're working class, like Greg Wallace, it makes it even easier for you to be thrown under the bus by the BBC. I really do feel that, because they don't seem to care about other people who behave badly. Like Naga Munchetti, for example, who made sexual jokes on BBC Radio 5 Live behind the scenes and has a bullying complaint against her on BBC Breakfast. Like, they don't care about that. And we know why, because she's a mixed race or a woman of colour. But I'm actually not saying, Neil, that she should be sacked too. But how on earth can you sack John Ter Road for making one mistake if you're not sacking Naga Munchetti for one mistake? Do you see what I mean?
Well, we talk about two-tier justice in this country, don't we? And it's redolent right throughout the system. We're in this cultural Marxist tyranny. North London woke lefties who riddle the broadcasting elite of the legacy media in this country. Of course, this is entirely what one expects to happen. And it's talk about the revolution consuming its own. Eventually, it will do, of course. The French Revolution was the prototype of all this, and all the revolutionaries ultimately went to the guillotine as well, because the monster they'd created ultimately consumed them. And what we need is for a government in this country to repeal the Equalities Act of 2010, which has entrenched all this kind of nonsense and has imposed a woke tyranny upon us, whereby the worst aspect is people who are now policing themselves. Can I tell this joke? And we're living in a regime of silence, ultimately, if we police ourselves, like in East Germany before the fall of the Berlin Wall, where people spoke in whispers for fear that something they said might be interpreted as being against the regime and so on. And this is exactly the kind of mindset and culture that has been spawned in this country as a result of half a century of gradual decline into this woke cesspit. And it's time that we had a party that took over the government of this country to repeal the legislative infrastructure which makes it all possible.
Very, very well put, Neil Hamilton and Christine Hamilton. Do stand by, because in just 1 minute, another shocking story of the week, Prince Harry tricking the king into this peace summit and then allowing all of this information to be leaked. What do I know about it? Well, I'll tell you all and get Christine and Neil's reaction. Plus, we'll hear from Lady Colin Campbell in just 1 minute. But first, as I've entered my 40s, aging has become ever present in my life. My body doesn't back up the way it used to, let me tell you. And I've found that it's far easier to get injured when trying to work out and far harder to recover. But I believe one of the best aging breakthroughs of the last decade is qualia senolytic, and I'll explain why. So senolytics are a science field revolutionizing human aging. A big culprit behind that middle-age feeling can be the so-called zombie cells that linger in your body after their useful function, wasting your energy and resources. Now, those zombie cells can lead to less energy, slower workout recovery, joint discomfort, and basically feeling old, right? So Qualia Senolytic is a groundbreaking, clinically tested supplement with 9 vegan plant-derived compounds that help your body naturally eliminate these zombie cells, helping you feel years younger in just months. And here's what I absolutely love. You take it just 2 days a month, helping your body naturally eliminate zombie cells to age better at the cellular level. Now, since taking Qualia Senolytic, I felt like I've turned back the clock. Actually, higher energy, less soreness after exercise, a big boost in productivity. That all equals feeling so much better. So experience the science of feeling younger by going to qualialife.com/Dan for up to 50% off your purchase. And if you use the code Dan, that's DAN, you'll get an additional 15%. So that's QUALIA life.com/Dan for an extra 15% off your purchase. Your older self will thank you. And thank you so much, by the way, to Qualia for sponsoring this episode of Outspoken. But now, back to the show. Breaking right now, Prince William and his team at Kensington Palace are furious that Prince Harry and Meghan Markle have attempted to jump the king into peace talks and at the same time prove some sort of division between the king and his eldest son, the heir to the throne, which had been so strong in recent weeks. Now, you may know my reporting on these peace talks, which I am convinced, for a whole load of reasons, was leaked by Prince Harry and Meghan Markle to a specific reporter via Prince Harry's friends at the Mail on Sunday called Charlotte Griffiths. She's the editor-at-large. She has spent months and months trying to rehabilitate Prince Harry's image in Britain's biggest selling newspaper. I don't think it's working, but she has tried to do it. And even today, she has revealed that is in sort of the new part of his ludicrous campaign to convince us, oh yeah, we really should like Prince Harry again. He's just arrived in Angola to cash in on all of the peace talk publicity by walking across those landmine fields like Princess Diana did all of those decades ago. The slight issue, of course, Harry's already pulled this trick once. We're not suck it again. And I actually think it's pretty sick using the poor folk in Angola as some sort of publicity stunt. Get some new ideas, Harry. But look, reporting from Matt Wilkinson, the royal editor of The Sun newspaper, about how Prince William really feels is fascinating. Remember, The Sun is very, very closely aligned to Kensington Palace. And he writes that this peace summit is really an attempt to force a wedge between Charles and William. And I completely agree. So let me take you through this. Matt Wilkinson writes, while offers were made and invites accepted between Montecito and Buckingham Palace, there was not a seat at the Members' Club balcony for anyone from Team William. Worse still, they had not even been invited. Harry has made it clear he wants to bond with his father again, but no offers are made to William. The Sussexes appear to be offering the hand of friendship, but are they actually trying to force a wedge between the king and the future king? If they can get the king on side, then they can isolate William. Divide and rule. William is right to stick to his guns as he is in a better headspace now, is no longer seething and has moved on, but is still waiting for Harry to apologise. While Harry loves bombs, his father, who has not locked the door or thrown away the key to reconciliation, let's not forget it has been his older brother, who has consistently made big gestures. It was William who kindly took him and Kate out of the royal procession at Harry and Meghan's final royal engagement, the 2020 Commonwealth Day ceremony, after learning the Sussexes had also been removed. It was William who stood shoulder to shoulder with Harry to unveil a statue of Princess Diana at Kensington Palace less than 3 months after that Oprah Winfrey interview. It was William who agreed to wear a mourning suit at Prince Philip's funeral instead of military uniform to spare Harry's blushes. It was William who invited Harry and Meghan to join him and Kate to look at flowers left in Windsor for Queen Elizabeth II after her death in a show of unity. And it has never been William who has publicly trashed his family. The King and Prince William should hopefully see through any attempt to divide them, and they must stick together. Royal happy families cannot happen if Harry tries to cut off his father from his brother, and next time a bottle is handed over as a gift, we hope it's cordial. To my superstar panel, Neil Hamilton and Christine Hamilton. Now, Christine, I totally understand why Prince William would be furious about this, because not only was his team not invited to these peace talk summits, since the news leaked in the Mail on Sunday, I believe via the Sussexes, they're not even trying to hide that they're briefing the media, Christine. Over the past 24 hours, we've had these articles appear in People magazine and Vanity Fair, you know, all of their favourite publications where they get the propagandists writing what they want people to think about them, even though it's not true, saying, oh, you know, Harry organised this and he's coming back into the royal fold. And you can just see William sitting there thinking, I told you so, Dad. I told you so, Papa. You cannot trust these two, because every single time, Christine, it turns into a circus and it's all down to them. So I think William, whose approach is exile, right? Like some people might think that's hard, but his view is no, it worked for the Duke of Windsor and it worked for Wallace Simpson. And I think he is completely right. And, you know, I've criticized the king a couple of times in the past week. I don't like doing that as a royalist or a monarchist, but I really do feel Charles has made a strategic error here by being sucked in yet again to the Prince Harry and Meghan Markle PR melodrama. Am I wrong?
Absolutely not. No. The biggest giveaway, I mean, I'm not an insider, but the biggest giveaway was obvious for anybody to see. If you're having a secret meeting, you make sure it's secret. And it's the easiest thing in the world for the royals to keep something secret. They have got endless houses, palaces, God knows what, where they can meet, their teams can meet. And yet they chose to meet on a balcony in the open air where people could see them sitting there. You know, these aides are not exactly unknown to key watchers, royal watchers. They know who they are. They will have seen them going into, I can't remember, it was some London club.
Yeah, just around from Clarence House. Exactly, but why sit outside?
Sit on the balcony. I mean, what? It's absolutely obvious that the whole thing was a complete set-up job, and the idea that the king set it up, of course, is absolute rubbish.
Rubbish, because he has no track record of doing that.
No. And Harry, to me, I mean, he's running out of steam. I mean, to recreate that walking through the minefield thing just shows how pathetic. But, you know, what else have they got to sell any longer? I suppose they can go on churning out the odd book as the time goes by. But, you know, I don't think Harry has ever recovered from being the spare. I think he's desperately jealous of William. And, you know, as far as he looks at it, William's got it made, William this, William that, William the other. But as you say, William is the one who has worked really hard to try and get the family back together. And this is how he is repaid. It's absolutely shocking. I never want Harry, frankly, or Meghan ever to set foot in this country again. I've had them up to here. They are selfish beyond belief. And I think they should just go on being selfish in the Montecito sunshine, but not in the
I totally agree, because Neil Hamilton, the problem is Charles now, even by opening the door, this tiny amount, has given Harry and Meghan exactly what they want, which is they want proximity to the royal family. They want to be able to pretend to all of the people who they're trying to make money from, right? We're back in the fold. We're going to be back. You know, it's just awful that Charles has given them this opportunity. I don't feel they deserve it. Do you?
No, certainly not. And let's remember that the mainspring of the Sussex business is their attempt to monetize the royal family. That's why the late Queen, of course, cut them off effectively, because they were told to choose. You can either be a working royal or else you're out. And so they lose their HRHs and all the rest of it. But to treat the tacky and trashy attitude of how can we make tourist tat out of the royal family in every respect is really a fundamental betrayal of everything that the monarchy stands for. And of course, the king naturally wants peace in his own family and will bend over backwards to try to achieve it. But you really have to ask yourself, how many times does he have to be betrayed by the Ginger Whinger and his ghastly Twiglet wife? Because they are not just a disgrace to themselves, but fundamentally have betrayed the institution which has given them everything they've got.
Totally.
So, Montseat is not far enough away in my opinion.
But Christine, there is a rehabilitation campaign going on, right? And it's been led by Charlotte Griffiths, but the Mail is getting on board with this. Now, I have my suspicions about why, because remember, there is this lawsuit going on which involves Harry and Doreen Lawrence and Elton John, and the Mail so desperately wants it to go away. And so I think they have softened their coverage towards Harry and Meghan, but I feel they're so out of step. So, for example, this column from A.N. Wilson, which was paired with the big revelation, and I just really didn't like the tone of it, Christine. William and Kate would probably be glad to never see Harry and Meghan again, but this is why they must make peace with the Sussexes and the disastrous consequences I foresee if they don't. Now, I'm sorry, Christine, I see absolutely no reason why Prince William and Catherine, the Princess of Wales, should be forced into any type of reconciliation. Like, can we just remember? Like, so Meghan accused Catherine of being the royal racist alongside King Charles. It was then leaked via the Omid Scobie book. Obviously, it was a piece of rubbish, but that is what they did. Harry accused William of being a bully and physically beating him up in his autobiography, Spare. They also leaked in that book private messages sent between Catherine and Meghan Markle to try and present Catherine as some sort of cold bitch. I'm like, I'm sorry, why on earth should they forgive Harry and Meghan after all of that?
No, well, I completely agree. I mean, we're incredibly lucky in this country. We had the late Queen, who was just impeccable in every single way, and we all got so used to her leading the country. We then now have Prince Charles, who, to my mind, is amply stepping up into her shoes. He's doing his own thing in his own way. Yes, he's made the odd mistake. I mean, we don't have irregular immigration, we have illegal immigration, and please just say so. But, Starmer told him to say that. What can he do? But we have in William and Catherine and those three gorgeous children, we have a fabulous royal family in the making, senior royal family, top of the tree, when the time comes. I hope it's not soon. But we don't need Harry. We don't need Meghan. That's their problem. We simply don't need them. They are desperate to remain relevant, but they could not be more irrelevant. They're nothing. They have chosen to step away, and God knows why people go on supporting them after the way they've behaved. And you gave that list of the way William has bent over backwards to try and repair things. But, the things that Harry and Meghan have said, either directly or indirectly, about his wife, Catherine, are absolutely appalling. And his loyalty is obviously to his wife, not to his absolutely horrendously ghastly little brother.
Totally. And didn't we just see at Wimbledon over the weekend, Neil, the future of the royal family? It's lovely, isn't it, seeing Prince George and Princess Charlotte develop into a force of their own. And I know they're still very young, but William and Catherine are just exposing them in the right way. Some key events like the Wimbledon final that they would enjoy. But I do think there's an underlying message in all of this. It's like, we're back. Yes, we had to take some time away while Catherine was undergoing her cancer treatment, but we're back. We're a strong family. And I loved this from Megyn Kelly, by the way, who just said this is killing the wannabes in Montecito. And she's right, isn't she, Neil? Because actually they have to do all of these ludicrous stunts, like, oh my goodness, the twerking thing.
God, that was awful. No, please don't show a rerun of that. For heaven.
Oh, come on, we've got to. We've got to. But you know what I mean, right? And then you have this lovely English family, Neil, and they're everything that's right about the future of the monarchy.
Of course, you're absolutely right. The monarchy is being refashioned for a new generation. And the monarchy has been very good, actually, at keeping itself relevant and connected to the vast majority of people in this country. It's not easy when you're that rarefied in the royal family. When George the Fifth really brought the royal family into the 20th century, and George VI and Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother in particular as well, made slight changes and nuances, which also made it an enduringly popular institution of this country. More than any other country in the world, we've maintained this ancient institution, which ought, in theory, to have no popular support at all. But nevertheless, it's a defining feature of being British, going back to what is British culture. The monarchy is a living embodiment of 1,000 years and more of British history. It's a human connecting link with past generations. And Prince William and Catherine are doing the business in order to carry on that great tradition. Whereas, I'm afraid that the Ginger Whinger and the Twiglet are just turning themselves into the kind of irrelevance that somebody like Ed Davey is doing with all his ridiculous stunts. So, as a form of entertainment, I'm afraid that it's just one big yawn to me. And I'm sure that there are millions and millions of people who agree with me. If we never see them again, it'll be too soon.
Yes, well, here's Lady Colin Campbell's take on this. I always respect what she has to say because she does it in her own brilliant language. She posted on X, "If only the King's communications secretary were as wily as Harry and Meghan and their people are trying to make out, then all monarchists could breathe a sigh of relief in the knowledge that a much-needed Talleyrand has finally emerged. Sadly, such optimism is misplaced. Clever Meghan and her manoeuvres, which she always seems to think are opaque, when in fact they are as transparent and freshly clean glass, have yet again been much in evidence since last week. No one plays persecutor as victim better than Megsy Baby and her sidekick Harold of Blue Todger fame. But she should read her history books if she wants to be a truly effective manipulator and learn from Talleyrand how to effectively shove unwanted monarchs off a throne when the moment presents itself, the way it did when Napoleon lost the Battle of Paris in 1814 and his wily foreign minister ensured the demise of the Bonaparte dynasty by giving the young Empress Marie-Louise advice that ensured that Napoleon's chances of saving the throne for both himself and their son and heir would be destroyed, while also destroying their until then successful marriage. So, Christine Hamilton, the translation there is, we know what you're doing, Meghan, and you think you're clever, but you're not, because we can see through this. And once bitten, twice shy, because I think King Charles's team, and hopefully King Charles himself now, will be far, far more conscious before agreeing to any type of reconciliation, peace talks with Harry again. They know it's going to end up in the pages of Vanity Fair and People magazine.
Well, I really hope they've learnt their lesson. I mean, I was astonished when I heard about it. I mean, how can his team be so gullible, honestly? How can they be? And they've been so strong up until now, refusing to meet Harry, refusing to let him do this. There was some huge event when he did come over. I can't remember what it was, to be honest. Was it the coronation? And yes. He wasn't allowed back to Buckingham Palace because they knew that anything that went on there would be leaked, etc., etc. And I really thought they'd learnt their lesson, but they seem to have let their guard down. And on this occasion, let's just hope it's the last. I mean, King Charles, if I was him, I would just... Of course, it's very sad. And of course... I'm talking about him as just a perfectly ghastly human being, Harry, that is. The king talks and thinks about him as his long-lost son, and that's totally different. But, I mean, to trick him in this way is just beyond the pale.
Well, yes, indeed, especially given, by the way, the only reason this even came about, Neil, was, do you remember that BBC interview? In fact, let's just take a look at the moment where Harry decided to reveal this.
I don't know how much longer my father has.
Oh God!
He won't speak to me because of this security stuff. But it would be nice to reconcile.
So effectively, Neil Hamilton, Harry decided to reveal to the world the fact that he thinks his father is dying, which is not what King Charles wants people to think. He has incurable cancer, but incurable cancer doesn't have to be an imminent death sentence. And of course, Neil, you know how politics works, and Charles is a political player. He doesn't want to be seen as a lame duck so early in his reign. He is hoping to reign for a number more years.
Yeah, and I think he has behaved heroically over this cancer diagnosis. He's fulfilled his duties as monarch as fully as he possibly can. And he's been very public about it, which has been a great source of comfort to many cancer sufferers in a dignified way. Prince Harry, I mean, he just seems to have a kind of death wish. He says that he wants something to happen, and then the very act of saying what he does destroys any chance of success. And the king ought to know by now that if you hold out your hand to feed Prince Harry, he'll bite it off. I'm afraid it's some kind of congenital or sociopathic element in his character. And so I'm afraid he's made his bed and he has to lie in it. It's all very unfortunate. Many families have similar kinds of problems, of course. And the top family in the realm is no stranger to this kind of thing either. But I really can't understand how time after time Harry can keep on treading on metaphorical landmines and blowing himself up.
Christine and Neil Hamilton, my superstar panel. Love having you both on Outspoken so much, and we will speak very soon. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
By the way,
My pleasure.
has Prince Harry been named today's Union Jackass? I will reveal the results in just one moment. But first, lots of comments coming in from you on the big news of the day, this 24,000 Afghan invasion. Tracy Lloyd writes, what about our own veterans who are living on the streets? So another reason they are building homes for that lot. Matt Spurs said there's no way 24,000 Afghans work for the British Army to translate, which is of course true. From Paulo, look over here, boats, boats. Meanwhile, they've been flying hundreds of thousands in. There's well over 80 million in the UK now. Kath Lissington says, I had to get out 5 years ago whilst I could still afford it. I saw this coming. My kids laughed at me. They are not laughing now. And Helen O.D. says, does Nigel Farage think restating the migration catastrophe is a substitute for solving it? Everyone is bored and infuriated listening to people saying how bad it is. We know. Solutions, please. And on the Royals, Oponion says Harry needs to stop copying Diana, Princess Diana, and leave that to his wife. And Becca Stephanie Thornquist says, through all this mess, William and Catherine have held their heads high and they bring pride to the country and the world. So, time to reveal today's greatest Britain and Union Jackass. Now, a reminder of the Union Jackass nominees. Rosie O'Donnell, put forward by Arts and Culture on X for blaming the Texas young girls drowning on Donald Trump. She said that's despicable. Harry, Prince Harry, nominated by Darren Donaldson for so obviously leaking the reconciliation meeting. And Jane Delves, nominated by Mother Clanger, the head of Bilton School, for sending Courtney Wright home for wearing her Union Jack dress. With 12% of the vote, Rosie O'Donnell, the runner-up with 24% of the vote, Prince Harry. But today's Union Jackass, that anti-Union Jack head teacher, Jane Delves. And on a very similar theme, and this is just so brilliant. Today's Greatest Britain, nominated by nominated by Yvette Henson, it is Courtney Wright, the 12-year-old schoolgirl who wore a Union flag dress to school on Culture Day and was punished for it. Thank you so much for all of your nominations. Now, coming up on the Uncancelled After Show on Substack, why desperate Prince Harry set to lose another 1.5 million as his down and dirty lawfare fails yet again. His biographer, our Royal Mastermind, Angela Levin, will be on deck to reveal all, including the royal news from the past. Why did Princess Diana hate Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh? I'm going to be fascinated to learn this, so do come and join us on Substack, www.outspoken.live. But we will be back with you live here at 5 p.m. UK time tomorrow, midday Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. If you're watching on YouTube or Rumble, please hit subscribe now. And most importantly, I promise to keep fighting for you.